Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, May 18th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. You don't think about them until you or a loved one need them. We're talking about ambulances. And tonight, San Diego's new ambulance provider is on life support itself. New reports show it's still failing to meet expectations and is now facing financial penalties. Here's KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman.
How tolerant and patient will the city be while this contract falls short?
San Diego's ambulance provider Falck is getting hit with a $457,000 penalty for not meeting response times. Data from Falck shows that they've improved in April, but they promised more ambulances on the road. And 6 months after taking over the 911 contract, they haven't lived up to that.
We have about the same service level as we had about a year ago. That is not what we expected in this contract. We expected more, and that's what we're holding them accountable for.
Fire Rescue Chief Colin Stoll says the promise of extra ambulances is how Falck won the contract last year. He says they continue to struggle bringing in and retaining employees.
If they are in fact doing everything that is within their reason and possible to improve staffing for the last 8 months, then this might be the best that we can expect to see.
Falck's managing director, Jeff Boehm, says the company is committed to delivering what they initially promised.
We're not prepared to make excuses. We take full responsibility for our contract and are committed to reaching these commitments. But admittedly, meeting these goals has been harder than we anticipated due to COVID surges and related to the lack of paramedic availability.
The fire department says ambulances are getting to 911 calls, but the lack of staffing means first responders are pulling extra shifts to make it happen.
Falck needs to get serious in their recruitment, hiring, and retention incentives of current paramedics, or we will continue to not meet the 1,008 hours promised, and we will not be successful. Our people are committed, but are getting crushed.
Falck says they are offering incentives for new hires and existing employees who pull extra shifts. This is the company's second update at the City Council's Public Safety and Livable Neighborhoods Committee. City officials say they're not seeing enough improvement.
We are beyond being surprised by the situation.
Initially, the city was going to fine Falck $2.3 million, but they reduced the amount due to COVID surges back in December and January. The fire chief is preparing for the worst, and he's currently looking into a plan that would bring ambulance services back in-house.
And hopefully we won't have to use it, but we need to have that in place.
Falck has San Diego's 911 contract for the next 5 years. Their next contract update is scheduled for July. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A follow-up now on a story that we brought you live last night after more than 5 hours of emotional public comments. No decision on 2 proposals for eviction moratorium protections in the city of Chula Vista. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado on why this will be a long process.
Renters in Chula Vista showed up in force to Tuesday's city council meeting to urge elected officials to pass stronger eviction protection ordinances. Dozens spoke during public comment about the need to extend the eviction moratorium and close renovation loopholes, saying landlords abuse current laws to evict lower-paying tenants. Renter Dora Parra broke down in tears when she shared her story.
Where are we going to go? I've got 2 weeks. Both my other neighbors here. I've been at this residence 17 years. She's been here, living there almost 50 years. And we're both being evicted, and we're here asking for help.
But landlords like Michael Campbell spoke out too, saying creating unnecessary laws to punish a few bad actors is not the solution.
I think this is an overreach in trying to solve a problem that is not really significant. And I don't know, I don't want to be a landlord anymore.
In the end, it was all for naught. The city council voted to postpone voting on the ordinances until July 12th, but not before someone voiced their frustration out loud.
His kids, his family, we need safety.
We're trying to get to that, please, sir.
It was very disappointing.
Leah Simon Weisberg, the legal director of Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment San Diego, a group leading the movement to protect tenants in the city, says if the city won't act, voters will.
The voter supports strong tenant protections. It's just the lobbyists and the power of the realtors sometimes prevents electeds from doing the right thing. And I think that's mostly what we saw last night.
We've raised a lot of questions.
Council member Jill Galvez says that after hours of testimony, it was clear that not only did they not have enough city council members to take the vote, but the proposals lacked the substance and research to go forward.
It's very confusing. I think that we need to have a better mapped out plan and really address how many staff people we'll need, how many additional attorneys we'll need to hire in the city to enforce our own ordinance.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Today, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria released the May revision to his Ready to Rebuild budget. It includes new investments to create more affordable homes, increase shelter capacity, expand access to mental health treatment, and enhance park safety. The additions bring the total budget for the 2023 fiscal year to just over $5 billion. The City Council's Budget Review Committee will hold a hearing on the revised budget tomorrow afternoon. The full council will vote on the budget in June. Many local families got just what they needed today, baby formula, and for free. The relief comes as the nationwide shortage drags on, and as KPBS reporter John Carroll shows us, the act of kindness came from a group known for its giving.
The San Diego Original Black Panther Party for Community Empowerment, their full title, has been hosting a food distribution event in front of the Clementine McDuff Elks Lodge for quite some time now, but recently they added something new.
We put out a call to get people to donate to this cause.
The call was answered. Wallace says they received about 130 bottles of formula, a godsend for Kathy Dixon.
It's very sad that the moms can't get milk for their babies. We got to help. We got to feed the babies. We got to feed the babies.
Dixon was here getting formula for her grandchild, the mother of her great-grandchild.
Some are breastfeeding, but they need that extra nutrients and stuff. I just hope that the moms can be able to get what they need and not have to drive so far.
Given the shortage of formula, you might have thought it would be the first item to go here. That was not the case.
It became obvious shortly after getting here that part of the reason for this story was now going to be about getting out the message about formula being available. All the food is gone now, but they had 8 bottles of formula left.
We've been giving it out for the last 2 weeks, and it kind of amazed me that the story wasn't getting out that San Diego Original Black Panther Party had baby formula.
The food and formula distribution happens here at 6 Hensley Street every Wednesday, beginning at 11 a.m. Henry Wallace says he hopes the word will now get out that baby formula is here, especially for parents of infants filled with anxiety about where their baby's next meal is coming from. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Gas is once again inching closer to record highs. The average price of a gallon of regular in San Diego County rose 1/10 of a cent today to just above $6. According to AAA, the average price has gone up 15 of the past 16 days by almost 24 cents a gallon. The national average price rose to $4.52 a gallon. That's a new record. Analysts are warning that the national average could be more than $6 a gallon by August. San Diego's first ever climate report card is out. The grades come from groups who are concerned about how the region's elected leaders are caring for the earth. Here's KPBS environment reporter Eric Anderson.
It's the first time county officials have been measured by their votes on climate-related issues. The news was good for San Diego County supervisors. Nora Vargas, Tara Lawson-Remer, and Nathan Fletcher all got A's. Jim Desmond earned a B and Joel Anderson a C. Supervisors were graded on votes linked to the County Climate Action Plan, cross-border pollution, and the Zero Carbon Sustainability Plan.
We declared the Tijuana River Valley a public health care crisis, created the Office of Environmental Health and Climate Justice, and we're ensuring that we have a regional decarbonization framework that has an equity lens.
On the City Council, Joe LaCava, Monica Montgomery Stepp, and Vivian Moreno earned A's. The city's political decision makers were graded on votes linked to stormwater funding, a parks master plan, and fossil fuel divestment.
We think that it's important to hold these elected officials accountable for every climate vote that they're voting on, and we hope that, this report card will be used as a tool for elected officials to see where they're falling short.
Chris Cate got the only failing grade on the report card. He earned fewer than 4 points for votes on 15 key city issues. That included votes on a city utility deal and stormwater upgrades. Mayor Todd Gloria also got a C.
This report is only the first. The organizers hope that it becomes a regular tool for the public to help keep track of elected officials. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And we are learning more tonight about that 18-year-old alleged gunman who went on a racially motivated shooting rampage in Buffalo, New York. As Chris Nguyen reports, police are digging into his social media and about how he got the assault weapon that he used.
In Buffalo, New York, anger and despair as a community continues to grieve.
When truly we feel ripped apart.
New details about Peyton Gendron, the 18-year-old white man accused of killing 10 people and wounding 3 at a top supermarket in a mostly black neighborhood on Saturday. The communication service Discord says the suspect created a private chat log on their site to discuss his plans and invited people to view it 30 minutes before the attack.
If people had knowledge of his plan, they should be held to account.
The posts were later found on the 4chan online forum in which the alleged gunman wrote that he visited the store 3 times on the same day in March to survey its layout.
We oftentimes call these shooters lone wolves, but in fact they're part of an extremist network that meets and connects and inspires each other to action online.
According to his posts, Gendron chose a grocery store over a church or school because he knew it would be busy at peak times. The posts also indicate the suspect chose the zip code because it had the highest percentage of black people relatively near his home. Gendron was held for a psychiatric evaluation last June after making a shooting threat at his school, but New York State Police did not seek a red flag order of protection against him.
It seems that there were layers that missed these cues that this individual was radicalized.
Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
In a stunning reversal, the San Diego District Attorney this week dropped charges against Jane Dorotic. She was convicted in 2000 of murdering her husband in their Valley Center home and dumping his body on the road a short distance away. Dorotic told KPBS Midday Edition there were other suspects who were never fully investigated.
There are other things that have come out in that immediate area with a series of violent attacks on people. One less than a month before my husband was killed, and 2 more right after he was killed, some of them completely unprovoked by one particular person and not investigated in terms of what happened to my husband.
After DNA evidence pointed to another suspect and an audit found sloppy work by a San Diego crime lab, Dorotic's conviction was thrown out. Now 75 years old, Dorotic is truly free after 2 decades in prison. She always maintained that she was innocent. San Diego hasn't had a new sheriff in over a decade, but that is changing now as voters choose the replacement for retired Sheriff Bill Gore. KPBS reporter Claire Tregeser introduces us to the candidates.
There are 7 people running for sheriff. KPBS reached out to all of them and heard back from 3. We caught up with those 3 on the campaign trail.
I'm John Hemmerling. I am the candidate for sheriff here in 2022. I am endorsed by the Republican Party. I am a 30-year plus public servant. Between my time in the Marine Corps, my time at the San Diego Police Department, and my time at the City Attorney's Office as the Chief Criminal Prosecutor.
I'm Kelly Martinez. I've been with the Sheriff's Department for 37 years. I've worked my way up through the ranks, and I'm currently the undersheriff. I run the day-to-day operations of the department.
My name is Dave Myers, and I am running for San Diego County Sheriff, born and raised here in San Diego. I spent 35 years in law enforcement, I've worked my way up through the Sheriff's Department to commander.
We asked the candidates what they thought was the biggest issue facing the Sheriff's Department. John Hemmerling says it's the high number of deaths in San Diego jails. A state audit says the department should require mental health screenings at intake and more interaction between nurses and inmates, among other changes.
First thing is to make sure all of the things that were recommended from the state audit were implemented. I think there's many other things that they talk about in there. Some of the best practices from the board, from the state board as well, that can be looked at. There's some best practices from the national boards as well that we're going to take a look at.
Kelly Martinez says it's hiring more staff, which leads to better care in jails.
We lost a lot of people in the last couple of years, so we need to hire about 400 people, both nurses and deputies. And then once, the hiring is so key because all of the other things hinge on having enough staff.
Dave Myers says the biggest issue is restoring trust in the department.
Sheriff's leadership has created an environment in which mistrust is the status quo in the sheriff's office. That this current status quo is not going to stop jail deaths, that the status quo in sheriff's leadership now is not going to address racial bias in policing.
Hemmerling is an assistant city attorney in San Diego. He says his leadership experience makes him most qualified for the job.
I spent almost a decade as a police officer working. Most of that time was in City Heights, where I worked a beat there in City Heights. I left there as a field training officer. I then went to law school while I was working at the San Diego Police Department, working my beat to become a better person for the community, a better person for myself.
Martinez, currently the undersheriff for the department, says she has direct experience leading the department.
Nobody knows the Sheriff's Department or our county better than I do, and I've already been working towards all of these changes and initiatives that we need to make our community safe.
Meanwhile, Myers, who's a retired sheriff's commander, says he can help diversify the department.
Create an environment in which the department of 4,700 positions reflects the community we're policing. That the community members who want to be in law enforcement live in the communities we're policing.
The sheriff is a nonpartisan office, but party politics still play a role in the race. Hemmerling was an independent voter, but in 2020 changed to the Republican Party and has their backing. He says despite the county's majority of Democrat voters, he can be elected.
No matter where you fall on the political spectrum, you want to be safe in your neighborhood. It's the number one job of government is to be safe, to provide safety and security and public safety.
Meanwhile, Martinez was a Republican but changed her party to Democrat in November 2020 and has the backing of many well-known Democrats, including San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria. She says her decision to change parties was personal.
It was done made before I decided to run for sheriff, but the sheriff's not partisan. The job of public safety really doesn't fall on one party or another.
Myers also changed his party from Republican to Democrat in 2016 and has the endorsement of the local Democratic Party. He ran for sheriff in 2018 and lost, but says it'll be different this time.
I was a full-time commander at the time. What's different this time is I'm retired. I'm not a full-time commander. I'm not getting picked on. I'm not getting marginalized. I'm not getting discriminated against.
The top two vote getters in the primary June 7th will advance to the November general election. Claire Tregeser, KPBS News.
And for everything that you need to know about the June primary, you can go to kpbs.org and click on the Voter Hub tab. You'll find our ballot guide breaking down all the races and candidates, as well as locations to vote or drop off your ballot. It's official. Flavored tobacco products will no longer be sold in San Diego starting next year. KPBS Speak City Heights reporter Jacob Ayers says the ban goes one step further.
Starting January 1st, 2023, flavored tobacco products, including e-cigarettes, cigarillos, and menthol cigarettes, will no longer be sold in San Diego.
And the tobacco company for decades has used flavors as a way, including menthol, to hook youth and people of color. And so we needed to tackle all of those marketing practices and make sure that those stopped.
District 5 San Diego Council member Marnie Von Wilpert led the move to ban the products through an ordinance she called SAAFE, which stands for Stop Adolescent Addiction from E-Cigarettes.
We're talking about strawberry banana and watermelon candy and things that kids normally would associate with. And that's why we're seeing a rise in vaping rates. And that's why we took action to stop that rise in vaping rates.
The new law was opposed by some small business owners, like Rami Kaji. He says flavored tobacco accounts for nearly half of his business at Fuego Smoke Shop.
I mean, I might as well just shut down. Might as well just shut down. It's not going to stop any kid from getting anything they want. If there's no flavored tobacco, they're going to get their marijuana. You know, there's already cartridges. People smoke cartridges in marijuana cartridges in school. You know, that's never going to stop.
The move comes months before the statewide referendum tackling the issue in November. It also follows similar action in cities such as Imperial and Solana Beach, Encinitas, and unincorporated areas of San Diego County. Mount Hope resident Andre Williams says he smokes menthols and will find a way to get some, regardless of the ban.
And it's going to increase crime rate because now people need more money. They can't afford a pack of Camels or Marlboros that cost $15 compared to $7 or $8. That's a big difference when you up in our community.
The ordinance does not apply to the sale of shisha, premium cigars, or loose-leaf tobacco, and unflavored or tobacco-flavored e-cigarettes, nor does it apply to FDA-approved cessation devices, such as nicotine gum and patches. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Well, we've seen an increase in some cloud coverage, especially as we looked across the coast. It has definitely kept things cool and comfortable. We do have a dry streak that will continue on, and then some breezy conditions as the next cold front works its way across the area. So for tonight, with those clouds at play, especially along the coast. And I do think that they will linger right here, not work their way further inland like they have in previous times. That will keep temperatures around 50s and even 60s possibly for San Diego, El Cajon 55, Ramona dropping down to 50 overnight. By Thursday, we can see that cold front working its way into Northern California, stretching down across the Great Basin, much cooler conditions back behind it, but it will remain quite warm for much of the interior southwest. But again, along the coast with those clouds and that onshore flow, it will keep things, I'd say, relatively seasonable. And you can notice the clouds even across the lunch hour, that marine layer pretty thick, working its way onshore later on into those evening hours and even more so. But I don't think, again, it will come to places like Ramona or even Mount Laguna. I think you're just going to stick with clouds just around those coastal areas. So tomorrow, with the mix of sun and clouds, San Diego staying pretty pleasant at 70, Oceanside 70 as well, Chula Vista 68, Ramona though, and then points on to the east like Borrego Springs, you'll still see some warming, and even into Mount Laguna 70 degrees. By the time we get into Friday, the heat continues, but it is limited for places like Phoenix to Albuquerque, Vegas as well. Much colder across Elko, Salt Lake City, even down into Cedar City as that cold front presses through. And you'll note temperatures right along the coast, they kind of remain steady with those low clouds and then sunshine in the afternoon. You can see a slight little cooling trend for your Saturday and Sunday, then back to the upper 70s the further inland for the start of next week. And even for the mountains, 60s in the forecast for the weekend and on. And across the desert heat, you get a chance to cool off slightly in the 90s, but back to the triple digits by Monday. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Michelle Rotella.
This weekend, about 4,000 students will graduate from Cal State San Marcos. More than half of them are the first in their family to receive a bachelor's degree. And tonight, KPBS education reporter MG Perez has the story of one graduate who turned heartbreak into hope.
What I'm doing right now is just watching this pressure gauge and making sure it doesn't get too low.
22-year-old Madison Wagner does best with hands-on learning.
And we evacuated about 3 times with nitrogen.
She also speaks fluent chemistry, a challenging science a community college counselor once told her was too difficult for her to pursue.
There was a big part of me that did believe what that counselor told me and did think that I couldn't do it. But there was a big drive for me. I wanted to make great medicine, and I knew to do that, I needed to go into science.
Madison grew up in Valley Center as a child rodeo champion. She was crowned Miss Rodeo California in 2019, an accomplishment someone else told her she could also not achieve. That was the same year she transferred to Cal State San Marcos, where she will graduate this week with her bachelor's degree in chemistry, the first in her family to do so. But her family is missing someone.
He suffered really severely with schizophrenia and depression.
The Wagners loved and lost their son and Madison's older brother, Pearson, suddenly to mental illness when he was just 16. The stigma attached to his death is something this young scientist is determined to end while she continues her work in the laboratory.
It really inspired me to make a change and to contribute what I could to making good medicine and making changes in the world.
Big instrument, too.
Madison has been mentored by Dr. Robert Ife, a Cal State San Marcos associate professor who has trained students who went on to do work in laboratories run by Nobel Prize winners. It's a perfect match for the former rodeo queen, determined to prove she is saddled and ready to change the world of medicine.
I want students to reach their potential and achieve their goals, even if it's a small one that others have said, nah, don't worry about it. If it's something you want to do, definitely try.
Just solid carbon dioxide, and as you can see,
in August, Madison will begin her PhD in chemistry with the prestigious Scripps Research Institution. She is also the commencement speaker at graduation, where she will mention her brother Pearson and the science she will practice in his memory. She considers that a gift.
I just feel very proud for how far I've come and thankful to him and thankful to my parents, most of all. Yeah.
One college graduate this spring, as strong as the memories she holds on to. MG Perez, KPBS News.
What a great story, and congratulations to her. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.